The Carolina Panthers. This is Sam Vaughn for Sam Sports Report. Mental health was today planned, but the sports world took over. In the NFL, mostly took over. In the last 24 hours, we've had some big news. We'll go with the big news of the day, the first big hiring, and then we'll get to last night, and we'll also get to the Atlanta Falcons today. Panthers hired Dave Canales. He was the Buccaneers and brought Baker Mayfield back. Canales was also the coach of the Seattle Seahawks, quarterback coach last season. Canales also coached the Seahawks at the quarterback coach for 7 years, where he won a Super Bowl in 2014. Canales is hired by the Carolina Panthers. The hiring cycle. Also, Atlanta Falcons named their new man. Raheem Morris has had coaching experiences, and that one didn't work out. Raheem Morris coached the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and that, as we said, did not work out. Morris also coached Kansas State, a local tie. Also, Jim Harbaugh has been hired in the last 24 hours. He is on his way to the LA Chargers, where he will be in a much warmer environment, more talented quarterbacks, the most talented quarterback he's had since Andrew Luck. He also won the national championship this season with Michigan. He's won at every job. Now the favorite for the Michigan job is Shane Moore to replace Jim Harbaugh. The hiring cycle so far. Jim Harbaugh of the Chargers from Michigan, and Antonio Pierce was the Raiders interim coach. Now he is the Raiders head coach. His dream job. Patriots Jared Mayo hired last week. Brian Calhan hired early this week, former Bengals offensive coordinator. Raheem Morris, Rams defensive coordinator, hired to the Falcons. Panthers Dave Canales. Seahawks and some Commanders still looking for head coaches. General manager filled so far. Tome select to the Raiders. Commanders Adam Peterson. Panthers Dan Moran. Teams that haven't been filled: Chargers and Patriots. That's Sam Vaughn Sports. We'll hear more from my opinion live later tonight around 9. That's Sam Vaughn Sports.
All right, I'm going to interrupt here. We have breaking news to get to here on NFL Live. We go right to Adam Schefter with another coach hire. Go ahead, Adam.
Well, Laura, the Atlanta Falcons are planning to hire Raheem Morris, who was the interim head coach in Atlanta. He's the Rams defensive coordinator, but they are moving forward in that direction. We get another hire from the NFC South with Raheem Morris getting that job in Atlanta. Again, a lot of qualified candidates. They spent today meeting with Bobby Slowick, the Texans offensive coordinator. They had Mike Vrabel in the building yesterday, but today they are moving forward with Raheem Morris as the hire in Atlanta as their head coach. And now, again, I wanted to lay this out for everybody because there are 2 hires left. Washington, Seattle. Mike Vrabel doesn't appear to be in play there. Bill Belichick doesn't appear to be in play there.
Wow.
Pete Carroll doesn't appear to be in play there. So there are some big names here that are left on the dance floor as of right now with this particular move. And it's a situation where the Falcons are going back to somebody they know well, somebody who's been in the organization. Raheem Morris is now in line to become the next head coach of the Atlanta Falcons.
I got to say, someone who grew up in Atlanta, Falcons fan, I love this. This is great. RC, I think you love it too. Tell us your thoughts on Raheem Morris, expected to be hired as a Falcons head coach.
Listen, I am fired up. Raheem Morris was my last defensive back coach. He's just an awesome man, but an amazing X and O coach, understands how to relate with players. And he's been there before. When Dan Quinn was fired, he had an opportunity to coach there. He was a guy that coached both offense and defense in Atlanta. We watched him move to Los Angeles and with the Rams, win a Super Bowl. Bobby Wagner, who will be on the pivot tomorrow, when asked who he wanted to be Seattle's next head coach, actually mentioned the name Raheem Morris. And so I think this is a slam dunk for the Atlanta Falcons. And many people don't remember this, but as an extremely young coach, Raheem Morris was the head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I believe that not going well for him when they tore down the entire team has been something that has been held against him. And to have this opportunity in Atlanta, now it's time to go out and get him a quarterback, and I think he's going to be extremely successful and a perfect fit for the city and the team.
Yeah, I absolutely love this hire. We call it Monday Night Football, and the Rams are one of our games this year, and Raheem is one of those guys, when you sit down with him, you go, you're a head coach.
Yes.
Just when you talk with him,
presence,
the way that his energy, his presence, the way that he communicates, I think the joy that he has about ball. Like when we sat and talked with him, that was a big takeaway. It's like, oh my gosh, this dude loves being in it with his players. And I think that is going to be something that is huge for Atlanta. The second thing I'd say is this. Les Snead, who's the general manager of the Los Angeles Rams, hired Sean McVay. How's that worked out? He was very passionate about the opportunity that he wanted for Raheem Morris to be a head coach. This guy, he doesn't say stuff just to say it, Les Snead. So this is a guy that knows, if I do this, I'm going to risk losing my defensive coordinator. But he is that good of a coach and deserves that much of this opportunity that I'm going to do it. And I think that spoke volumes about Raheem as a man. I also think it spoke volumes about him as a potential and obviously now head coach.
Yeah, well, if you're familiar with football circles like we are, we know how well respected Raheem is. But to that point, man, I can't help but think about what are you going to do offensively at the quarterback position, because the success is directly tied to how that guy plays and what position will they be in order to get a quarterback. I know Justin Fields' name has been thrown around. What will the Atlanta Falcons do front office-wise with Terry Fontenot and Raheem Morris coming together along with Arthur Blank and trying to figure out who's going to quarterback this team? Look, for as phenomenal as DeMeco Ryans was in Houston, for as good as Dan Campbell has been in Detroit, those guys, signal callers, played at very high levels this year. So we know that that's a direct correlation to the success that you will have as a head coach. There is no doubt Raheem will be ready for this job, understands what it takes to be a head coach. Now it's time to get to work and figuring out who's going to be a signal caller.
We're going to talk about the meteoric rise of Dave Canales that continues. The former Bucs offensive coordinator hired to be the head coach of the Carolina Panthers. Back to Adam Schefter. What more can you tell us about this decision?
Well, Laura, they're trying to work it out now. Essentially, that is the plan to hire him. They're still going over the contract details. It's not finalized, but it's expected to be. I was told it will get done. That was in the words of one source today. So we expect that Dave Canales will wind up being the next head coach of the Carolina Panthers. And if you go back and look at the work that he's done the last 2 years with Geno Smith in Seattle, with Baker Mayfield in Tampa, those were his last 2 seasons. That's exactly what the Carolina Panthers are looking and hoping for in regards to their franchise quarterback, Bryce Young. They have so much invested in the #1 overall pick. They need somebody to help him get to reach his potential. And they have identified Dave Canales as the guy that they're now planning to hire. They're ironing out the contract. Once that contract is ironed out, he'll be the next head coach there in Carolina, working with the general manager, Dan Moran, who we knew for multiple seasons in Seattle, and he will take over as the man in charge of elevating the performance of Bryce Young.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. Sorry, I misspoke there. I gave him the job before it happened, but Adam with the clarity. And you were referencing some of the work.
Well, he's getting the job.
Yeah, there we go. All right, so you referenced some of his work already, Adam, the reason why he would get this opportunity. Let's dive into that a little bit more. He was the quarterbacks coach for the Seahawks last season when Geno Smith led the NFL in completion percentage and won Comeback Player of the Year award. This season, Baker Mayfield set career highs in several categories with Canales as his offensive coordinator, and Mayfield capped that off with an impressive performance in the postseason, of course, as we all just saw. Denton, what do you think about this move by the Panthers?
I love it. The more you think about it, it's a meteoric rise for Canales. I had been adamant that they needed to hire an offensive-minded coach in Carolina strictly to rebuild Bryce Young. I don't care what anybody says, how mentally tough he is. He was beat down this year, and it's going to be paramount that that coach, now Dave Canales, goes in and rebuilds that confidence and rebuilds that self-belief in that young man, because he was the #1 pick for a reason, and he watched C.J. Stroud do what C.J. Stroud did, and he's got to be thinking, well, why couldn't I have been placed into that situation? And Canales could just lay out the resume. Here, this is what I've done the past 2 years. These are the quarterbacks that I've been a part of. And so I don't think it's only just Bryce, though. I think the other thing that was, I guess, surprising in Carolina this year was how bad this offensive line was. I think one of the things that Canales did well for Baker and Tampa was he didn't stress that offensive line a ton. His play calls were really married together with time in regards to getting the ball out of Baker's hands and not stressing that unit. I think that unit gets better, and in turn, Bryce Young bounces back quickly.